Hey guys, it's Al from Altruistic Channel. As the horns blare on the train. That train and I have become very good friends. Okay, so the reason for the early morning post. So for the past 3 days, I guess it is, I have been um, working with the divine very intimately as far as to what I will say about the journey thus far for many of us. So as you progress up the ascension ladder, if you will, many of us are finding truths that are hard to swallow and having to let go of life itself in many regards and finding a spiritual death, if you will, in the process of rebirth. And there is so much that I'm layering in saying this. And so I hope for those of you who are on the ascension, those of you who are actually making the transition or have made the transition, that you are able to read between the lines as to what all of that means. Because there is not secrecy, but there is omissions based on our understanding of what's around us and what's playing out for us. And so it's very interesting that I do not fear what the words I would say in place of those omissions. I've recorded them, but I have not posted them. And the interesting part is that it's not as if I'm being asked to omit anything, actually. It's actually just I'm following my soul's path towards the new spirituality center. And there is so much here. It's like following the light. You follow the light as far as you can go. But a lot of it is in the dark, right? So you're just following a beam of light and you're just like, well, okay, I've surrendered. Now what do I do? And in the process, I'm having to listen to what my innermost aspect of the monad and the innermost part of me is saying, hold up. And it's tests. They're like these little vignette tests that I call them that used to be really horrific for me. Like because I was fighting against the current, and those of you who are on the path, you know what I mean. They're really fucking destructive, and they're like very much about making you face your fear in a very literal feeling way. But and not just in feeling as an intuitive. I mean, like actually physically having to, and if you're afraid of death, like actually having to do the death process, and it's just kind of like very shocking things that play out in your world, and so you have to kind of make sense of it. And so as your consciousness changes, you begin to realize that there are certain levels to all things, and all truths can be true at once, and you start to kind of have to balance this in a way that you're kind of just intuitively being guided to. So that what I'm omitting, I'm not omitting on purpose. It's not like I'm hiding anything. It's because none of us are exactly on the same place. And so when I say things going forward with altruistic channels, it's going to be directed at a multi-level dimensional type of thinking. So it is up to you to be where you are, right? Because no one is better off than anybody else. No one's better prepared. No one is more gifted. No one is more ascended. No one is more anything than the other. It's about where your timeline is connecting with me. And so that's the best way to describe what this is all about. So many of you who are on the ascension, like truly ascending and have made the transition, are in a strange state where you're not quite sure if what you experience and what you think you experience actually happened because you're still here and you're still conscious of what consciousness is all about. But you're aware that things have dramatically changed and you know that the end happened. You know that there was an ending of massive proportion, and now you're settling into a weird new space where you're aware that you're kind of in both. You are. What you think happened happened. That you were called and you had to face it, and you tied your loose ends, and you are in a different headspace. True. You're part of a different community. You made the separation. You have left the natural state of understanding where people are. You are now having to ground yourself in ways that you didn't maybe understand and that still don't 100% make sense to you. But I would remind you of who you are, because if you have made this transition, you are on a path where you are following the breadcrumbs as to who you actually have been throughout the timelines of creation. And when you get to a certain point, which I can give you this much, it's going to center around 1500. 1500 to about 1540, I would say, is a window that I can point out to you that is indicative of making a clear connection to who you are, because it is a direct lineage in your actual genealogy of who you are. And when you make the connection between this version of you and that version of you, and you see what is the identical same, you will then be able to go backwards and go through transcendent, and you will transcend through the timelines. It's kind of amazing. And you will be able to know exactly who you were in every incarnation that is predecessor to that. It's an amazing journey. You are tying up the loose ends, because in transition, and read between the lines, you are not leaving the state of conscious awareness. You are leaving the state of physicality. Okay? This is a very important distinction. You're still very much alive, right? I'm still here. But you have transcended the physicality dependency. And so now you are picking up all of the lines that trace back of you, and you're carrying them forward into oneness, into being the one that you are, when you make the conscious choice along the way to choose the body of which you will present from here on out in the consciousness of humanity, which is becoming, some would say, Aquarian. I'm going to preface this and say I don't agree with that. I would say that you are returning to your Aquarian state. Big clue. It's not going to make sense to a lot of you, but I'm talking to a specific few of you. Then, those of you who are finding yourself during the awakening process, I'm going to leave that little first part there. I'm going to then say, for those of you who are finding yourself in the awakening process, your life was going well to some degree. You had figured a lot out, and things started to go your way. Suddenly, people left and right started to die. They were making their exits. God offers an exit to all people during the transitional phase. This has never been done before. But the moral of the story is that you are now having to face your shadow side in a very in your face way. Things that you were insecure about are now coming to light. Things that you were very sure were done are now having to get redone. And so everything's kind of been thrown upside down. The person that used to be your best friend since childhood suddenly maybe hates your guts. Your partner has either cheated on you or is somehow not the same person that you're in love with anymore. Something has changed and it happened overnight. It was very shocking to you. And so it doesn't have to be brutal. It can be something subtle, and you're just uncomfortable. You are part of the awakening process. You are now going to climb the proverbial mountain of understanding, and along your journey, you're going to be guided. And the best thing I can tell you is find those to speak your language and speak to where you are right now. There are people and places along the path of the journey up the mountain, the base camps, that are purposely staying where they're at and not progressing so as to guide people along their path and their journey. As you make your ascension up the mountain, understand that you will have to conquer the physical, the mental, and the in between, where you basically marry the soul with the body. You remember, and I'm going to give you a big clue on this because a lot of people have been falling off the path on this. You cannot conquer your body. Your body has to agree in a 50-50 split to work with you 100%. You cannot subdue it. It's like that thing where people think that you go through the shadow side of yourself, the darkest parts of yourself, and you conquer and get rid of. You can't do that. Where there's light, there is dark. Both, all parts of you have to make the transition together. Okay? It is a holy union. It is a union of oneness. It is not one being. It is a bunch of thought processes that have to arrive in completion to their checkpoint. And when you make your checkpoint, you transition out into something else where I'm at. And shit, my cigarette went out. That means I should wrap it up. So the awakening process is a little bit jarring and it's a little bit confusing, and you get kind of hung up on these different aspects of yourself. But understand that in the end, you are safe. All of it is an illusion. You are not technically going to die in the sense that you thought you were. Like, it's not in the same context. The death is just a doorway. It's a transition point. And if you can wrap your head now at the base of the mountain behind the concept of blinking or jumping or whatever it is that your brain can understand in the metaphysical world, that will allow you to understand that it is just a doorway, then you start to not be afraid of that process, and the journey just goes skyrocketing that much quicker, and you just get to where you need to go. And finally, on the day that you have to let go of the past, it is a physical form of death that you must conquer. You don't die. It's not like it's a doorway. I cannot stress this enough, because you are making a transition from physical dependence on reality, where you are just a body, to conquering the mental plane of what the transition might be. When you release both, you have to let go. And when you let go, you will be surprised, and you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if you stay, you don't know if you go, you don't know if you're caught in between, you don't know what happens. But it is that leap of faith that is required to become where you need to be in a specific point coming up. All of this is because God loves you, and God thinks that you are stronger than you think you are. He is tasking you with ascending and joining what is happening with the sacred planet alignment, and it's becoming a sacred planet. When that transition happens, the way that you experience life cannot stay the same. It's painful. You get headaches, you get stomach aches, you get cramps. I still have problems breathing. It's like a whole thing. So when you make the process, you have to let go. I will give you one clue though. If you have dental problems, get your teeth fixed. All of you must make the transition before you can let fully go and make it. And so don't get all stuck in your head about it. It's nothing major. It's just something that the Gautama Buddha said about your teeth and about your body. You're trying to get all of your aspects of who you are in completion, so that when you let go and you have chosen the body that you will present yourself with in the new world, if you will. It's just another state of consciousness. You're still very much in the. You see what I'm saying? It's like it's all in the same place. It's not like we're losing our mind, and we're not like. It's not like you're like fucking losing it. It's just that you have to understand where you're at compartmentally, and so in order to do that, all of you must come through. You are reconnecting all of the loose ends. Anything that has existed, you are reconnecting it, so that, like in a file, think of yourself as a Akashic record. You are a record of yourself in all of your literal lifetimes, all the way back to, if you're starseed, where you come from, who you are, and how you made it to the planet, and why you are either seeding the planet, providing the new Eden, creation, or whatever it is that you're doing. All of it comes through with you. And so I'm going to leave it at that, because we're at almost 15 minutes. But it's very important for you guys to hear what I'm about to say. We are on the verge of the Aquarians age of life. As the Aquarians march through, it is going to connect you with either the Atlantean bloodline or the Arcturian bloodline or the starseed family you come from. Whatever it is your belief system is based on, follow that all the way through. Remember the map that you were giving at the beginning of this year. You were given clues to what you should do, and I'm just following through on what you need to do now. I'm going to leave it at that, because I think most of you get what I'm saying. And if you do, trust me, just go with it. There is nothing to fear. The worst case scenario is a death process in which It is just a doorway. If you reach that point, it will be made clear. Blink of an eye and jump to where you are nearest, and you will be just fine. That's it for me on Altruistic Channel. I hope that it makes sense to you. If it doesn't, it's not your time. Come back and revisit when it triggers in your mind what I've said. And for all of you, I love you very much. Good luck. Have fun. It's the journey. We all wanted to do this, and so it's your time. Be proud. Go strong. Don't be afraid.